Let's go! Do the Saints intentionally avoid drafting LSU players in the NFL draft? I have the truth for you today, but here's the thing. As we always do on this channel, I'm going to need your help in the comment section because, look, this has just been out there. I have been told about this for years. It's been a narrative, a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, that LSU players are just something that the Saints don't chase. So we're going to talk about a few ideas as to why that might be the case. But in the background, you saw the legend that is Patrick Queen, National Championship Defensive MVP, who was right there for the Saints to take in the first round. And it would have made a lot of sense. The Saints needed help at linebacker. Instead, they drafted Cesar Ruiz, who has been a failure up to this point. And Patrick Queen, of course, has been the opposite for the Baltimore Ravens. First thing, though, which is pretty nuts to think about is, well, Patrick Queen isn't the only one. A lot of you, of course, are going to bring up the 2013 draft where the Saints selected Kenny Vaccaro out of Texas, ironically the clip in the background here, over Eric Reed of LSU, and the Saints had the opportunity to take Reed over Vaccaro, and Reed has been obviously a better player. Kenny Vaccaro is still in the league. To me, though, the most fascinating thing, though, about Patrick Queen is that he himself has publicly stated that he knew that he was not going to be selected by the New Orleans Saints because of the narrative surrounding the Saints and LSU draft picks.
Like, just looking at all the mocks, and it's like, you could fall there, you could fall there. So when the pick came up, I'm sitting there, my dad is like, yes, he's going to be a Saint. I'm sitting there like, I don't want to be a Saint.
I won't be there.
I did not want to go to New
Don't
Orleans.
wish that on me.
It's just what it's always been. Like, they don't grab LSU players. So I was like, in the moment, I'm like, I don't want to go there.
Do you know, is there like a known thing for guys coming out that, like, at LSU, like, hey, the Saints don't draft LSU guys?
Like, it's just known. Like,
is there a reason? Like, is there
I guess it's just us being there, from there, playing there for so many years. They don't want to, like, take a risk of them always, just staying where they were.
That audio via mic'd up with Mikey Matuk. Still, that's just nuts that Patrick Queen basically said that wasn't going to be a fit for him, even though this game in the Superdome was by far his best performance ever. I mean, we probably don't win this game without Patrick Queen. I'm sharing with you two brief conversations I had with people that know the NFL in and out, and they both agreed that there is some truth to what Patrick Queen said, even though one says, it's more rare. Obviously, Tyrann Mathieu going to New Orleans probably wouldn't have been good for Tyrann coming out of college. So it's not just a narrative that surrounds the Saints, but just the NFL at large. But let's get to the big question. Now, I'm about to share with you a statistic that is going to upset you, especially if you are a New Orleans Saints and an LSU fan. Boom, I'm looking at you. Yes, you, okay? Now, which team has selected the most LSU players over the past couple of decades? And the answer is going to upset you. These guys. But obviously the focus of this video, the New Orleans Saints, you see here since 1980, they're actually tied for the fourth most LSU draft selections. This chart made for us by our friend Jared Lee, Analytics Ace. What's really fascinating, though, is recent history does tell us something different, because since Sean Payton was the coach from 06 to 2021, along with Mickey Loomis, they only selected two LSU Saints in the NFL draft. That was Al Woods and Will Clapp, and they were both lower round draft picks. Let's actually look at draft by draft. Should the Saints have selected a few more LSU players even outside the first round? So in 2021, the Saints were more than likely going to take Terrace Marshall, according to me, my favorite Saints radio host, which is Sean Fox in the state of Louisiana. But of course, Carolina jumped with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. They took Terrace Marshall in the slot right before the Saints. And the same thing actually happened later. I don't know if the Saints would have selected Racey McMath, but he was selected the pick before the Saints. Now, there are some other examples where the Saints could have selected a similar player at a similar position over the player they actually drafted. Zach Bond, who was a linebacker, was selected a few picks before LSU's Jacob Phillips. We'll see how both of their careers play out. But really, the only only other one where there was a position-to-position situation was Marshawn Lattimore in 2017 over Tre'Davious White in 2017. We'll see how both of their careers play out, but obviously both of them are on a Hall of Fame 5-time Pro Bowl trajectory. So, it's kind of hard to pick and choose. And honestly, we can get down into this if you really want to. There are plenty of examples where avoiding an LSU player has actually been pretty good for the Saints. Take last year where Terrace Marshall, once again, the worst QB situation in the NFL, had a really rough rookie year. If the Saints were going to select Terrace Marshall, they would have missed out on Pete Werner on the very next pick. And Pete Werner was really good as a rookie for the New Orleans Saints. And I'm interested to see what he's going to do moving forward. Also, let's just go back to 2017. Let's just say the Saints fell in love with Duke Riley in that third-round region. Well, they would have selected him. Let's just say they would have selected him early in the third round. They may have missed out on Alvin Kamara. Also, Alex Anzalone ended up being the linebacker they selected in that region. And Anzalone and Duke Riley have had about similar production. So, really, when I looked at it, maybe you guys have a few more examples. The only egregious mistake that I saw the Saints make, just looking at first-round draft boards and draft position and whatnot, was the Patrick Queen over Cesar Ruiz. The Saints just don't draft off-ball linebackers in the first round. They did back with Stephon Anthony, who was really good as a rookie, but didn't really do anything else after that. They've mostly addressed it in the draft and free agency and later rounds. So that was something the Saints just didn't do. So I do think the Saints, who have had really good draft process over the years, well, they avoided Patrick Queen more so because he was a linebacker than potentially he was from LSU, which obviously was a mistake. But the thing is, linebackers just aren't the same value of other positions in the NFL, and that's why you don't see so many go in the first round. And I think that has more to do with why they did not draft Patrick Queen. And the Saints do have a rough history drafting linebackers. If you look at that 2015 draft, they drafted 2 in the first 2 rounds, and there were a ton of Pro Bowlers drafted around them. The second thing I would say is there actually is a better conspiracy around surrounding a team with heavy Bama influence that avoids LSU players like the plague. And ironically, this team is the one that selected the player that we've been talking about for most of this video. Boom, I'm looking at you, okay? Now, if you love a true conspiracy, okay, cue the spooky music. So let's start with a simple fact. Patrick Queen was rightfully skeptical that the Saints, who have never selected an LSU player in the first round, would not select him. But the crazier thing is that the Ravens had never selected an LSU player, period. Think about that for a second. Ever. All the gazillion LSU players that have been drafted by every team, the Ravens were the absolute last. Now, this is where it gets really spicy. The Ravens were ran, and the architect of their reign of really good play over the past couple of decades is a guy by the name of Ozzie Newsome. And as you see, Ozzie Newsome is not only from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, he is also a legendary Alabama Crimson Tide player. Now, I want you just off the top of your head, as you take a look at Ozzie Newsome's resume, I want you to guess how many Alabama Crimson Tide players Ozzie Newsome took from 2002 to 2019 when he was the general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, okay? And while you come up with that guess, I want to once again shout out to all the lovely viewers. Please subscribe. Please ring the bell. It goes a long way with helping to grow this channel. Now, he took 10 Alabama Crimson Tide players while at the same time taking 0 LSU Tigers, okay? So the irony of it is, well, a lot of those Bama players turned out to not really be that good. His 2 first-rounders were Mosley and Humphrey. Both of them turned out to be pretty special. Humphrey's still with them, and they let Mosley walk. But for the most part, Courtney Upshaw was okay. A lot of the Bama players just turned out to not be good at all. And despite all those Bama busts, Ozzie Newsome is still one of the best general managers in the history of pro football, and he is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, once again, do I believe there was some anti-LSU bias? Just maybe. I mean, 10 Bama players, no LSU players. I mean, it does make you think. And the second year that Ozzie Newsome is not in control, so really the first year that the new general manager of the Ravens has his, imprint on what's going on, he actually ends up finally taking an LSU player. So you conspiracists out there, roll with that. Share it on message boards. Feel free to do whatever with that information. Now, you guys saw a little graphic earlier in the video. Would LSU have won the national championship without Patrick Queen? This is actually the play that, to me, is the most underrated play in LSU history. So, obviously, Clemson had all the momentum. They had just scored. We were 3-and-outing, or not 3-and-outing, but we were struggling on offense. Joe had just, torn his rib cartilage right before the half. And I want you to watch this play right here by Patrick Queen, where Clemson calls the absolute perfect screen pass here to Travis Etienne, and I want you to watch what actually happens from this all-22 angle, and we'll bring it back in just a second like we normally do in our film study. You notice Patrick Queen makes this tackle. Now, if you're watching this just from the broadcast angle, it looked like pretty much all the other screens that Patrick Queen made. He made like 3 or 4 tackles on screen passes, but it was this one that potentially saved LSU the national championship. Obviously, if Clemson scores on this play, they are taking the lead in this game, and honestly, they should have. So Justin Ross right here, the wide receiver, all he had to do right here is get a decent block on Patrick Queen, but notice he beats Ross on this block. I want you to also notice all the LSU defenders right here. This screen pass drew a lot of our faster players. He gets a huge help right here by Christian Fulton coming up here and squeezing his contain responsibility. But the truth is, if Justin Ross had just a slightly better block right here on Patrick Queen, Etienne is scoring here, okay? Now, he would have had to have beaten Grant Delpit, who is a really good touchdown-saving tackler, had a big one for us versus Auburn. But with a lead blocker right here and this guy right here, I don't know if Divinity is catching Etienne here. Either way, it's at the very least a game-tying field goal. That's a touchdown-saving tackle. And I don't know what would have happened. We obviously ended up scoring, 2 more times to seal this bad boy away. But we never talk about that play. It's one of the best of all time. And I'm personally a big Patrick Queen fan. I'm from New Roads, Louisiana. He's from Livonia, which is right down the road. Well, I'll put it this way. My mother's side of my family is from New Roads, Louisiana, and I've spent a lot of time there growing up with my grandparents. But still, I would have loved anything, and I mean anything, for Patrick Queen to end up playing with the Saints. But it didn't happen. So comment down below, do you believe there is a conspiracy going on with the Saints or Ravens? Maybe you guys are privy to some information that I don't know. I reached out to a lot of people. I shared some of the information I gathered today. So, yeah, it is a very interesting topic. Now, if Clemson really needs to know how to run a screen, how about you take a look at this Jamar Chase screen in this game? It's always fun to look back at this memory. Now, floating in your face in just a second, there will be some current spring game film study breakdowns if you want to check that out. Now, if you are a die-hard New Orleans Saints fan, aka Falcons hater, there was a little nugget that I put at the earlier portion of this video that I think you might enjoy, okay? So make sure you check that out. It is Power Hour LSU Boom! And tonight, we're doing some deep dish pizza. Let's go.